Maggie Williams, Content Director for REBA. Welcome to this REBA on-demand video, part of our series focused on innovation, reward and benefits. The events of 2020 have created both new working practices and also deepened existing trends, such as more flexibility in the way that we work, that we were already seeing before the pandemic. However, as we seek to re-engage staff and glue the workforce back together, finding effective ways of rewarding and recognising staff has become more important than ever. I'm excited to be here today with Alex Powell, Director of Client Culture and Engagement for Reward Gateway, to discuss how employers can reimagine their approach to reward and recognition in a changing world of work. I'd like to start off today by talking about how to make recognition meaningful, both to the employee receiving that recognition and to the employer organisation as a whole. Alex, how can we create recognition moments that matter to employees?
This is important as much as we know everyone wants to be recognized. If the recognition moments don't feel meaningful, we won't get the participation. People won't engage with it as we'd like them to. So I'll start simple, really with the moment of recognition, whether you're saying it to them in person in a one-on-one, whether you're typing it up into a formal recognition program. What we recommend is that you not only acknowledge the action that they did, but that you tie it into the impact that it had. And for many of us, this can feel so obvious, like it's clearly impactful. That's why we're recognizing it. But it feels like a stupid question that we're answering when we say why it matters. But it's so important and it's so easy for us to forget to do. So for example, recently, a colleague asked me to attend a meeting and partner with them. And they said, thanks. Afterwards, they acknowledged it. They said, thanks for taking the time. But then they added on a statement for me that said, by joining the meeting, I made them feel supported and confident. And they could have just said, hey, thanks for joining the meeting. That wasn't that big a deal. It wouldn't have been that meaningful. But when I knew that allowed them to feel supported and confident, that made my day. That made the recognition for me. So the first layer is making sure people understand the impact they have and being really explicit about it. And then I think the second thing for employees and teams is to add in layers of recognition, establishing different ways. So there's the peer-to-peer recognition I just spoke about, but then maybe you need some manager-led rewards. Maybe these folks are much more motivated by what their managers think than their peers. Or maybe it's that you need to have a layer or an opportunity for people to give out company swag. I know some people that would love a company sweatshirt that are less enthusiastic about the $50 e-gift card that they can get. So I think it's about building in layers and making sure that there's different ways for the same people to be recognized. So those are the things we've seen be really successful from the employee perspective.
So Alex, following on from that, what about making this meaningful for employers as well?
I think I've actually interacted with some folks that feel almost like they want the recognition to come naturally because it's the right thing to do, that they're reluctant to make it too much about the strategy of the business. But what we've seen is if we can do both, then we're more likely to get the full leadership team behind the program. And honestly, we're more likely to support the impact that people are having to the business. So a couple suggestions. First of all, is really just in working with managers, asking them, what is it you'd want to see done more? So if you're looking to recognize, there's the things that knock you off your seat that are no-brainers. You're going to recognize those things. But if you wait for those to happen, you're recognizing like every 3 months and you're just not really building the culture. So working with managers to say on a weekly basis, just consider what are the things you wish were done more and who did a bang-up job of it. So let's say that as a leader, I have a pet peeve about people who aren't responsive. Naturally, as a human, I might spend a lot of time thinking of being annoyed about people who aren't responsive, but really getting people to flip that script and say, instead of worrying about the people that aren't in this instance, consider the people that are. And think back to your week and say, who did a great job of being responsive, of getting me responses or clients responsives in the way that I needed them to, and recognize for that. So do the thing you're already doing, but use recognition to promote it. In fact, we have some clients that have gotten really explicit with this, where they build in a reward to their program that is specific to the action they want to see done more. So in healthcare, during the last year and a half, and even before that, staffing is really challenging. So I have a client that has a reward for consistent attendance and a reward for picking up shifts. So not only are they encouraging managers to demonstrate appreciation for that, but they actually have put some reward money behind it. And there are managers that might be stingy with rewards until they see the topic. Oh yeah, I'd gladly give out money for people who are coming in on time and picking up shifts, because that has such a huge difference to the kind of patient care they can provide. So I think the two things would be working with managers on the actions they can recognize that support their part of the business. And also thinking about, in our program, are there actions that we know we're going to want recognized? And could we just build that into our reward system so that managers feel invited to hit on the things they already want done more? And then recognition feels less fluffy and more about a management discipline.
So we've talked now about individual moments that matter, but how do you keep that momentum going so that you gradually build a culture where recognition is just the way that we do things and that it really drives engagement?
I think first of all is considering what's already going on in your culture and building that into recognition, so that your recognition, whether you're refining it or refreshing it, just looks like a continuation of what you've always been doing. And that works really well when you base it in your values. So we have a lot of clients who have e-cards that are part of their peer-to-peer recognition system. And those e-cards are just based on their values, right? So I would choose, did this person represent our teamwork value or our value around customer excellence? So I'm integrating the culture that's being spoken about throughout the rest of the organization into recognition. We even have clients that build in their strategic objectives, like saving time and money is something you can build in as a topic for your recognition program, so that everyone understands why those things are important and the recognition really flows from there. The other thing I think would be frequency. So to your point, we want it to just become a part of the way we do things around here. That's not going to happen if we're recognizing only occasionally. So I talked about this a little bit with the managers, really encouraging them weekly, putting time on their calendar weekly, adding it to recurring meetings, a recognition moment. Some leaders may feel this is a bit hokey, or they might worry if they have time for it, but it really just takes a minute. And at the start of meetings, especially with so many of us on Zoom, to take a moment to be human and say, who's seen someone deliver on our values? Integrating those recognition moments into the meetings we have, into the one-on-ones we have, can put it as a topic that we address every week, every day.
I'd like to turn now and talk a little bit more about the timeframes in which employers manage recognition. Because I think we traditionally tend to think about reward in terms of annual pay rise cycles, possibly linked to bonuses as well. But in a world where we're all used now to instantaneous feedback, I mean, do we need to rethink that approach? And if so, how do we go about that?
I think it's been coming for a while, but it absolutely is a place we all need to arrive at pretty quickly, that immediacy of recognition. One of the challenges people have with performance reviews is it just doesn't work if you do it on an annual basis or even semi-annual. People really want continuous feedback. The research backs it up. I'd much rather know how I'm doing on a weekly basis than wait till the end of a big project and then even get a ton of acknowledgement. I want to know on a regular basis. So, and think it bears up. If I've reached outside my comfort zone to do something like maybe talk to a client about a product I wouldn't normally sell, that kind of reach needs that immediate feedback. Otherwise, I'll back away from it just as quickly. So I think this is where technology comes into play. With all of us remote, with all of us attached to our technology more than ever before, we need to make sure that the places we already are going is where we can get that recognition done. So if you can send a reward or send a recognition moment from your phone or just opening a tab in your computer, it's fast and effective. We don't want to ignore the face-to-face recognition, but the way things are getting done now, and the pandemic has cemented it, is digitally. So we need to make sure that, especially for folks that are out on a job site or don't see their colleagues throughout the day, to make that face-to-face recognition happen, we want it to be easy to do in the places we already are. So like, if you're in Microsoft Teams all the time, you should be able to have that recognition happen through Microsoft Teams, as our system does, or you should be able to pick up your phone and do it.
We've been talking more broadly about technology, but I certainly think that one of the trends the pandemic has really cemented is our use of well-designed consumer-grade experiences using technology. Are you finding that employees are expecting, if you like, a Netflix quality experience now to help drive that engagement? And how can businesses help to deliver that?
I mean, whether we like it or not, we're competing with customer service agencies around the world. To your point, can we deliver information as quickly as Netflix? Online shopping has boomed during the pandemic. My baby boomer parents now order their groceries online. It's unprecedented. It wouldn't have been expected to happen. So we can't, but we also need to be careful, because during the pandemic, we did research that showed that HR teams had the most stressful year of their careers in 2020. So how are we going to deliver a bang up experience when we have teams that are trying to do more with less and are already under stress? So I think personal interactions will always continue to be important, but obviously the future, as you pointed out, is really tied to the digital experience. So we already talked about the need to have recognition happen where you are, on demand, on your phones. But I think there also, we need to consider the reward experience. So many times we design the program and we say we're going to give them rewards, but what does reward redemption look like in this new post-pandemic age? Are we getting people the rewards immediately? Are they getting the level of choice? Is it on demand the way so much of technology is? We did some research that showed that what people want when they redeem a reward is immediacy, choice, and transparency, right? And that's how we're interacting with technology these days. So in addition to things like e-gift cards, which have been traditionally a way people can get rewards, we're seeing the need for charitable giving, people wanting to express their values through how they redeem their rewards. And in fact, the need for choice is so strong, we've actually partnered with Amazon so that people can redeem their rewards where they've been doing so much of their shopping in the last year. They can just go out to the Amazon catalog. That absolutely represents choice. And then when we think about our best friend, the Prime delivery person who brings us that reward the next day, that's really one way to make sure that the way we've gotten used to shopping also aligns with the way we get our rewards, that it's quick, that there's tons of choice. But we also need to think about, how are we going to do that without putting too much stress on our HR teams? The last thing we want is our HR teams to have a pile of rewards in their house that they're shipping out and sending, right? Really using technology to support that is really important.
Absolutely. And I really take the point about HR teams that are under incredible pressure at the moment. So as you say, making this work, harnessing that technology to make that effective is really important. So I guess the other thing is the nature of the workforce itself is changing now, and we need to perhaps reposition reward to think about that. We're seeing a lot of debate around remote and hybrid working, but as individual employers' plans start to fall into place around that, what role do reward and recognition strategies have within that, and how do they need to change and evolve?
I think what we're seeing is the need to reconsider where your workplace home is. In the past, we've done a lot to make our brick and mortar facilities really welcoming to people, really engaging. There was a big boost to have, the ping pong tables on site, but less and less people are going to be on site. And so we need to make sure that we have that place where people feel welcomed and home, but in a digital workspace, right? So we've seen this with our clients where they're building out a centralized place where people can go, where they see all the information they need, they get access to recognition, they get access to communications, but it's not the bulletin board at work. It's not the coffee counter at work. It's somewhere online. And I think the ways we need to adjust our strategies are, first of all, with peer-to-peer recognition. If you have been putting a lot of pressure on managers to be in charge of recognition, I mean, that's a good point. They should be leading by example, but now they have even less of a chance to be the ones that spot great work. They're literally not in the same buildings as their teams in many cases. So the peer-to-peer recognition, the opportunity when I spot a colleague do something great, I can elevate that, and that benefits our managers, right? So I capture that story, that person's manager has even less of a chance to even know that that's happening. So peer-to-peer recognition has become really huge. And that's also why we've seen people talking so much more about rewards. I think that they're looking for that extra stamp to add to recognition. They want to know that people really hear it. We used to be able to walk over to someone's desk and say, I saw what you did, and I read that recognition, and I want you to know how valuable that is. But now it's going to be with the use of rewards, or if it's non-monetary, the use of interaction around recognition. So, when you post a recognition out where everyone can see it, leaders and colleagues can, if they can comment and react like they would in a social media environment, then it's not going to replace the connection you have when you see people face to face, but it's as good as we're going to get, right? So we want to be able to say, I saw what you did there, and add to the acknowledgement, if we're not able to walk by someone's desk as frequently and give them that acknowledgement there. So I think the peer-to-peer recognition is huge. Rewards are something people are considering when they haven't before. And the interaction around recognition, having a place to do that digitally, is going to be really important.
When we come to putting these strategies in place, obviously we need to be able to review them over time to make sure that they continue to be fit for purpose. How can employers go about that?
I think there's been a lot of shuffling from a people strategy perspective in the last year. And one of the things we've learned during the pandemic is the things that worked early on didn't work even a couple months in. Our happy hours, our Zoom happy hours that were such an innovation in the first weeks of the pandemic, very quickly their attendance started to peter out. So we need to be reevaluating. But again, these teams are really busy. So making like review times over the course. So if you've renovated or renewed your recognition program in January, setting up a planned time where you're going to interact with people on the front lines and leaders to say what's working, what's not. In one case, we had a client that had put together a very simple reward program where for people who got recognized, they got a coffee card. It was simple, it was easy to do, and a lot of people loved it. But they found out that there was a contingent of the organization that found the coffee cards insulting. So there were the people that loved it, but then there was this group, some of their higher level leaders, that thought, given the amount of work they're doing, a coffee card actually diminished the recognition. So they had to get a little more flexible with what a reward was. Um, so this is where you can certainly do the anecdotes, you can have the focus groups, but we've also seen you can save a lot of time and be a lot smarter with measurement. Are you able to measure which departments are embracing the program and which are falling behind? That doesn't mean they're not going to get on board, but it's a lot more effective if we catch the trend early on and talk to those leaders about what we can do to support it. We actually have a lot of clients that will print out or PDF a manager participation report on a monthly basis and just send it out. And what that practice does is it lets people know if they're leading the pack with how they're using the recognition program or if they're falling behind. And it doesn't need to be a big conversation, but when people see their name at the bottom of a list, it is a very effective reminder. And so we've seen awareness build, we've seen participation build. So I think measurement is key. So when you kind of plan out those review points, making sure you have some numbers to look at so that you're removing any blind spots. And so you can see where you need to give that little push to the program so that it doesn't become something utilized by 50% of the organization, and you start to have the other 50% feel a little resentful that they're not getting that love.
Well, Alex, thank you very, very much indeed today. I've really enjoyed our conversation. I think there's like lots of very innovative and some fantastic ideas in what we've been talking about that employers can take forward. So thank you very, very much indeed for your time today. I've really enjoyed our talk and really look forward to talking to you again in the future.
Wonderful. Sounds great, Maggie.